Welcome to another edition of Carnivore Bites / Carnivore Radio. I'm your host, Jeff Sherman, along with Dr. Eric Lopkin. Breaking news. Stephen Breyer, the liberal judge, is stepping down. I laugh. I just can't help it. It's Biden's first appointment, but, I'm laughing because everything he does turns to shit. So I wondered, then there's even talk about him nominating Kamala. Oh, my God, please. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I can't imagine him actually nominating her. I mean, I can see him considering it, but even the other Democrats aren't going to confirm her. She's got a
Wait a second, can I
popularity
interject? Because no, wait, I think that's awesome. I didn't even think of that. That could be her swan song. And they're good at getting rid of people. You nominate her, even Democrats get rid of, don't accept it because she's completely incompetent in everything she's ever done. And goodbye, Kamala. You're out to the scrap heap. You're going to write books with Hillary.
They need the majority, and I think there are enough moderate Democrats who would go, no, she's incompetent. We can't confirm her. I do wonder, though, because over the past year, Democrats have been putting a lot of pressure on Breyer to retire because they wanted to ensure that Biden could name his successor, because they know they're not going to win in the midterms. And once the Senate flips, there's no guarantee that any nominee from Biden would get through. So I have to wonder how much of that pressure is behind his decision to finally retire.
I would agree with that 100%. There's actually been banners outside the Supreme Court by, oh God, have we freaking fallen from the top? Yeah, and something, I hate this word progressives. They're nutcases. Progressives suggest when you say something's progressive, that means cutting edge. These people are not cutting edge. They're idiots. AOC, the Squad, the whole lot of them are basically they're the scrap heap of humanity. They're Stalinists. Most of the world's moved on.
Calling them progressives, I mean, progressives by the name of it implies progress. Well, calling them progressives is like calling a fat guy slim or a bald guy curly.
100%. So I see this term, and no one, even at Fox, they don't push back. It's not progressive. It's counter-progressive. And speaking of Fox, just to interject something, Steve Ducey and, Biden, who's really deteriorating mentally, basically called him an SOB, not in control of his faculties, but also Steve Ducey, and this is totally, astray, but Steve Ducey, Fox complains that the press doesn't ask any tough questions. He's never asked a question about the open borders or anything, so he's no bargain either.
No, Ducey has asked a lot of tough questions. In fact, that was how this whole thing started, because he had 2 pages of questions about crime. And Biden said the only thing he's accepting questions on is inflation. And Ducey just went, and asked the question if he thinks inflation's is going to be a detriment to him in the midterms, which realistically is not that stupid a question.
Not stupid at all.
Yeah, and this is not the first time that Biden has done this. He's been caught on a hot mic several times insulting reporters. And if Trump had said this, the media would have been all over it. Oh my God, how can he talk to reporters this way? Biden, it's just business as usual.
Yeah, but something about Biden, it's hurt him politically. Because no one thought he was a Mensa candidate unless you're progressive. I'm kidding. But no, unless you're an absolute moron, you think this guy, he's not exactly Tolstoy. Okay? So, but you thought he was Uncle Joe, Lunch Pail Joe, Amtrak Joe. No, he's a son of a bitch. Okay? He's not a nice guy. In fact, Michael Reagan came on some kind of show saying that during the Reagan administration, he threatened to leak anything he didn't approve of to the press. I mean, a real son of a bitch, not a nice guy, checking his watch when people who he essentially, not directly, but indirectly were responsible for their deaths, and he's checking his watch and talking about Bo. Shut up about Bo. We've all gone through problems, dude.
Well, again, I mean, we saw during the press conference, after a while, he gets very angry. This is a sign of dementia. It's one of the symptoms is that if you were an angry person before, when the dementia hits, it gets that much worse. And we know he was never a nice guy. So, yeah,
well, he was
dementia's making
marketed,
it
and one
worse.
thing I think, even though most liberal Democrats, never actually held a real job, they are amazing marketers and amazing salespeople, and especially Mr. Obama. And they marketed him as Lunch Pail Joe. And I want your opinion on this again, transgressing a bit, but I heard this commentator who was stunningly brilliant. I believe it was on Newsmax, and he was saying that Trump's policies, and we talked about this on Carnivore Radio, his policies were among the best ever, okay? But personally, he was among the worst ever. But this guy was saying, and we concurred on this in terms of on Carnivore Radio, is get over it. He's not your husband. He's not your best. I mean, you got to grow up, America. Your comments. I mean, now that we're in the situation, the world's on fire because I didn't like Donald. He wasn't a nice guy, and he was so mean.
Yeah, inflation is up historically. 7% hasn't gone up that fast since the 70s. Gas prices are skyrocketing. We look like we may be on the verge of sending troops, if not to Ukraine, then at least the surrounding areas. Afghanistan was a complete debacle. We've got an open southern border. We just had a terrorist attack on American soil at the synagogue in Texas, but at least there are no mean tweets.
Yeah, yes, he's such a nice, and he eats ice cream. The world's on fire. He sent up a tripwire against Russia, and I love that. People like Nancy Pelosi, crying Chuck Schumer, people that couldn't put their shit together enough to invade Rhode Island are now brass balls about Russia. How pathetic.
Now, that's something important to note, though, because they're all up in arms over Russia. But it was only a few weeks ago, while the Democrats were trying to get rid of the filibuster, that Democratic senators used the filibuster to stop sanctions against China.
No, against Russia. Against the Russian
against
pipeline.
China. No.
There was also Ted Cruz wanted to put sanctions against the Russian pipeline that was also blocked.
And that was blocked as well. And it is absolutely ridiculous that now all of a sudden, we have to stop them. We have to really. Where were you a couple of weeks ago? Why weren't you paying attention?
Because everything for them is political. These people are incompetent. It was really funny. I was watching Tucker Carlson like 3 days ago, and he has a good sense of humor. He's like, Michael Jackson appeared on TV today, and he had a picture of this lady. Is, my God, if she ever stopped buying Botox, I think the market would friggin' implode. I mean, my God, she made Michael Jackson look like who knows. But and speaking of Nancy Pelosi, she had a speech, and the Democratic Party really is a party of dementia. She gives a speech. It was about as sincere as Hitler going to a bar mitzvah, okay? She goes, I'm doing this for the children. And she kept saying it, and it was just like, oh, God, can I just throw up?
Right. Let's not forget that this is a woman who absolutely destroyed her home district and now has bought property in Florida. Okay, she's heading out for retirement. Of course she's going to run for reelection this time because the Democrats cannot admit that they have failed so badly that they're going to be lambasted in the midterm elections. They have to put up the image. And to be fair, all politicians do this. No politician ever comes out and goes, well, we're going to lose. But it's absolutely amazing how out of touch the Democratic Party is.
Oh, it's totally out of touch, and it's amazing. First of all, the country has flipped Democratic versus Republican, and it's happened very few times. But it's also the flip. I remember when I was a kid, and it was always like, I grew up in a liberal household, and it was always the understanding that the Republicans were the country club sect, and the Democrats were the Joe Lunch Pail. I don't mean Joe Biden, but Joe Lunch Pail. It's completely reversed, and it's not completely. The Democrats have the willing idiots, okay, and the underclass to support the elites. What a great system. It's a caste system back from India, isn't it? But that's the Democratic Party, whereas, especially with the Trump revolution, the Republicans are more of the, let's say, middle class. And that's where their sweet spot is.
Well, realistically, I mean, how can you claim to be the party of the common man when the Speaker of the House is making billions of dollars, millions and millions of dollars using inside information from the House?
Yeah, it's really pathetic. I do think that's interesting, kind of when we talk about the Democratic Party and the corporate media. I think it's really interesting. I've seen several reports on this, Dr. Lopkin, is that it seems like, and we've already talked about this on, Carnivore Radio, that is the Democrats, when you're no longer used to them, and then, by the way, they're much more strategic than the Republicans, and that's not saying much. The bar's pretty low. They will cast you out. Now you see Chuck Todd actually his opening monologue on Meet the Press was basically the rejection of the American people of Biden. And that's Chuck Todd. Hello? So are they building the case because they know this guy has no chance of winning if we're still around after the Ukraine in 2024? And yes, and beyond.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're starting to realize, oh my God, we backed the wrong horse. We have to at least pretend to be nonpartisan and impartial. So they're starting to, come back. Now, this is certainly not universal. If you saw Joy Reid on Stephen Colbert, these two have gone so far to the left it's not even funny. I mean, they were defending Biden. So
okay, anyone who watches Joey Bear really needs to take a mental competency test because they're friggin' stupid. That show is unwatchable. How she has a show is inexplicable. And how does he have a show is also pretty much inexplicable.
Well, his ratings have been in the toilet since Trump left office.
God,
of course, so has MSNBC and CNN. Without the big bad to go after, they've shown they have no talent, no skill. But you're seeing the media. Part of what Chuck Todd was going on about, and we've seen a couple of media personalities. Bill Maher has been doing this. Even Gayle King, when she was on Colbert, started talking about this. There's a fatigue factor. It's like enough is enough. Yes, we didn't like Trump. We fought against Trump. We made a mistake because we put in an idiot. And now they're going, oh my God, he doesn't answer questions. They're questioning if he's even capable of answering questions.
Okay, let me interject one thing real quick. When has the last time, I don't care, shitty presidents, Carter, you name it, who cares, that I've never, even Johnson in the, the dark days of I've never heard of are the majority of people questioning a president's ability to function. Have you ever? Maybe I missed something,
No,
Dr. Lopkin.
no, that's actually never happened before. There were people that were questioning Reagan's competency in the last years of his presidency,
True.
but it never got to the point where it was a majority of people.
Yeah, I mean Reagan towards the end was diminished,
Yes.
had diminished mental capacity, but it was already on auto. He already accomplished what he had to accomplish. Plus, he was surrounded by extremely talented people. That's not the case with Mr. Joe Biden.
No, Biden is surrounded by the same people that ran the Obama administration, to the point that, I don't know if you caught this, in an interview, Jen Psaki accidentally mentioned how much she liked working with President Biden.
No. The whole thing. Look, again, I've been around the block. I've never seen anything like this. When they had his, and it was a photo op, or he even knows, maybe he's so demented that he just wanted, Joey just wanted to get a little ice cream cone. It's like working in a nursing home. Okay, Johnny. Yes, we'll wheel you out and you'll get a nice little bacon and egg breakfast. Yeah, I mean, the world is blowing up, and someone gave him the money to like pay the clerk. You can just tell. God, it's like a bad movie. That's scary because miscalculations with the Ukraine and Russia could be everything. I mean, even the Ukraine said this crisis has been exasperated by Biden.
Yes. Well,
it's very scary.
Biden is fiddling while Rome burns. Everything he's touched has become a disaster. He doesn't know what he's doing. And I mean, again, remember the quote. Biden has been on the wrong side of every foreign policy decision for 50 years. Robert Gates said that. Why should we expect anything different? He's proving Gates's point.
And he's also proving something we talked about, Dr. Lopkin, back in terrestrial days. And I believe it was Chris Calandra who said, he meets, being a business person, meets more competent people in 5 minutes than you could in 5 days in government. And it just, Biden, has he ever worked a day? No, he's been in Congress, in the Senate. He's he has nothing to, he's incompetent. He's a moron. He's never had to prove himself. He's floating around. He's a failed, 3 attempts at the presidency. It's only because of everyone hated Donald Trump and there was an open field in the Democratic Party because no one thought that Trump would, or the coronavirus would happen, that he actually even emerged. And also, it was also the Democratic Party being scared shitless that Bernie would be the nominee. That's why Elizabeth Warren dropped out.
If you look at these policies, Bernie is the president.
Exactly.
I mean, I know Biden in his press conference said he's not Bernie Sanders, but if you take a look at what he's tried to ram through, yeah. I mean, Build Back Better was written by Bernie Sanders. So the idea
yes, and you know what's really funny, Lopkin? It's so funny, but it's sad that today Biden, Rome is burning. Build Back Better basically has the chance of succeeding, like I have, to go to the moon, and he's doing a speech trying to get support from corporate America about Bill. It's like, I think you just send him out just to get him away from the White House. Just do a speech. Speech about Build Back Better.
I don't think it was their idea to let him go do speeches. During the press conference, he said he was going to get back out there and meet with the people and be very public. And I can guarantee you anybody that followed the Virginia gubernatorial election was going, no, keep him away from people.
Oh, yeah. Well, even in Georgia, what's her name? I forgot.
Stacey Abrams
running, yes. And, oh, yeah. Okay, I'm sorry to say, if the president called me, I wouldn't say, I really can't make it, Mr. President. I have to I have an oil change at Jiffy Lube. No, I don't think that's going to happen. It was bullshit. She knows, and they weren't going to ruffle any feathers that I can't go there because it's going to cost me my election, my electoral bid.
Yeah, Democrats are fleeing Biden in record numbers. You have voters leaving the party, you have politicians backing away from him. And one comment that absolutely floored me, there was a Democratic strategist who said the problem with the Democratic Party isn't that we have bad leaders, it's that we have bad followers.
That's McGowan.
Yeah, they're blaming the voters for this.
They have a history of not taking responsibility. And speaking about being irresponsible, we have Kamala, our esteemed vice president, and Rome is burning. Because of their actions, we're basically a second away from a confrontation with Russia and Putin. And Kamala gave a speech that the focus of the administration, this is not a joke, the focus of the administration is the most vulnerable. And she went on to say that and articulate, and that is minorities, of course, it's minorities, LGBTQ, whatever, and migrants. Okay, can we smoke some more pot, please? No, seriously, I need another hit. Are you kidding me?
She's right. The Democratic Party's focus is on its most vulnerable because we have the mental deterioration of Biden and Harris, and they've been the focus. They're
part of the group now, aren't they?
They are the most vulnerable, is Biden and Harris.
Good. And we'll conclude with the explosion on crime. And being someone that experienced the 70s, and the 90s in New York with Mayor Dinkins. Crime, the liberal media can, shortchange it, but crime hits African Americans, hits Hispanics, and hits everyone. And that's something you can't, and it hits someone very, very, very powerfully. Everyone gets affected, and you can't walk away from that. And it's Maslow's hierarchy. Safety needs are at the bottom. In other words, any society that can't fulfill that and protect that ceases to be a society. And I think that's beyond and there's and there's more coming, and Biden's screw-ups and Harris's screw-ups. But I think crime is a thing that's going to resonate more than crime, and inflation is going to resonate more than any other. Your thoughts, Dr. Lopkin?
Virtually every poll has said that crime and inflation are the two major concerns for all voters across parties, independents, everybody. What has happened now is absolutely inexcusable. You have murderers who are getting out on bail. We had just this weekend across the country 3 more cops killed. We've had over the course of January, it's amazing how many police officers are being killed. It's open season, and the prosecutors are not doing anything because they're for bail reform. They want to let everybody out. You had a city councilwoman in New York City talking about how the police were created to keep slaves in line and they need to be abolished. Okay, seriously? Let's start by abolishing all police activity in a 2-block radius around her house.
Okay, very interesting, though. I agree with that. And it's sad. It's interesting, sad, pathetic. It shows you how people like Nancy Pelosi and the Democratic progressive elite are so out of touch with their even constituency. Hardworking African Americans primarily, and Hispanics as well, they're the ones who want more police. They don't want less. And in fact, it affects everything. I was going to go on a weekend trip to Philly, which a place that I lived for several years, went to grad school at. And I'm thinking, do I really want to go? I mean, it's freaking dangerous. Are you kidding me? It's like, yeah, let's go to Vietnam for the weekend. So it affects everyone, is my point.
It has become absolutely ridiculous. And you're starting to see, I mean, first of all, people don't feel safe. But now that increase in crime is also affecting local economies because businesses don't want to bring their workers into these areas because they're afraid they can't keep them safe. Retailers are pulling out of areas. You've had a number of retail stores in California just close up shop because of the constant shoplifting and robberies that their DAs won't even prosecute. So it affects the entire area. And it amazed me. The new DA, new Manhattan DA, put forth his plan that this is how he's going to fight crime. And it was by not prosecuting misdemeanors, by changing some felonies to misdemeanors. And it is exactly the opposite of what was done under the Giuliani administration. And that administration took a high crime city and turned it around.
It turned into one of the lowest crime cities in the world. I mean, for major cities. In the world. Not just America, in the world.
Right. We know what to do. We know how to stop this problem. And the progressives are trying to do exactly the opposite.
Okay, but some of the root of this is George Soros, an enemy of America and an enemy of Western ideology. How is this cockroach allowed to function? What the F is going on?
No, it's absolutely amazing. He's the one that has funded the campaigns for these progressive DAs. Pig. And you know what? He's another one. Let's just remove all police action from the area around his home.
It's the same thing we talked about. George Soros, if you see him in any pictures, he's at at an event, a speaking event. They're eating sushi. He never has to endure what, let's say, inner city people have to endure because of his effing policy. He's a disgusting pig. He's always been, and I'm surprised there hasn't been more light shown on this cockroach. And then he might be crawling into some wormhole, hopefully, but it's never going to happen.
It's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. And I think there's a problem with Soros that goes even beyond, because I just saw a number of investigations, and it looks like it's not just Soros. He's basically stepped away, and he's put a whole machine in place that's just doing all of this automatically without him now.
I figured that because he knows, because he's a very old man, and unfortunately he needs to continue his perverted legacy. Yep. But Dr. Lopkin, it was a great show. And something? We don't do this for fame and fortune. We do it for the children, don't we? I'm just doing this for the children. Yes. I don't care about, ever being discovered.
Somebody think of the children.
Every time, when we do research for the show, both of us, it's all about the children.
Right.
Well, Dr. Lopkin, great show. And our listeners, we can be heard almost everywhere, can't we, Dr. Lopkin? And we got a good new feature on the Exvadio website, don't we?
Yeah. If there's something you actually want us to look into or have a comment on one of our podcasts, you can reach us at exvadio.com/connect. You can find the podcast every week on the Carnivore Radio website, as well as the exvadio.com/podcasts, the Apple Podcast app, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Amazon Music, Audible, and wherever you find podcasts.
And just remember, we only do it for the children. Thank you, Dr. Lopkin, and thank our listeners.
We'll see you next week.
Thanks.